Yes, mentally challenged. Here we are again. Today's topic is hypocrisy. J.R. Tarina, the Master Butcher, here with the one and only cursed Chinese food eating, slowly dying
Yes.
Mark Hansen.
Yes, and if I die, it's JR's fault for
I put a
cursing
satanic
the
curse on a former.
Korean restaurant that I ate at the other day, and now my pancreas is exploding as we
But that's his
speak.
fault for getting too much hot sauce.
Phew, you can
Have you
never
ever
have
heard
too
of
much
the
hot
band
sauce.
Extra Hot Sauce?
There's a band, extra hot sauce.
There's a band on Peaceville Records way back before grindcore even really started up called Extra Hot Sauce. It's Danny Lilker from Nuclear Assault. It's just comedy metal.
Dude, every band has Danny Luker at one point or another, right?
He was in a lot of bands, but it is what it is. Brutal Truth had their moments, but they kind of found their own footing after a while. It was more like a hardcore punk mixed with industrial, and Nuclear Assault's always going to be Nuclear Assault.
Yeah, I still listen to Something Wicked. Or is that their sellout album? Are you gonna like shit on me for liking Something Wicked?
I don't know. I lost touch with them after that. That was like one of the last ones they did, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. I bought that album because it was on it was a really shitty horror movie called Warlock. And it was at the ending credits, that song, Something Wicked This Way Comes. It was groovy though. Yeah, I mean, I think the label has something to do with that too, you know?
Yeah, probably. And that's always, and it was funny because I was listening to Kiss the other day on my, like on this mix that I have on my phone, and the song Kissin' Time came on. You know that one?
Is it by Kiss?
No, I can't remember who it is, like Dave Clark or somebody. It's some old band, but
Yeah,
it
Dave Clark
appeared,
5.
yeah, it appeared on their first album, which is weird. Well, what it was a song that Neil Bogart, who runs their label at the time, Casablanca Records, all he did was like bebop, bubblegum bullshit, and was
Yeah.
trying to get stuff in like commercials, and that's how he like marketed music. So he did that with Kiss he made them do this song after they recorded their first album. So it was like, whoa, every time is kissing time, USA. Like the song is all, come on, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Chicago. Just stupid. And Kiss didn't want to do it, but they did it because they made him do it. And they got involved in this kissing contest thing that was going on, which is a very 70s thing, early 70s.
Oh yeah, that was
The
before
last dregs of the free love movement. So there's this ugly hippie ass
before
people.
AIDS. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's these two ugly, hairy hippie people with like full beards and like scraggly hair and just sandals and shit on the Mike Douglas show or something, or some 70s variety show, and they're kissing. They're not talking, they're just kissing continuously. I'm like, who does this? Like, why would you do this? What's a waste of fucking time other than that? I mean, so Kiss does this, and the people who are in the contest get to meet Kiss. They don't know who the fuck Kiss is. Kiss doesn't care about them. And the whole thing was like a worthless flop. But it's really weird because I have the first album my brother gave me. Does not have that song on it. But then I got another copy of that record from a friend years ago. They just gave it to me, and it has that song on it. I was like, "What the fuck?" So there's two versions of that record out there. But yeah, it was.
Hold on, maybe it's worth something. I don't know.
I don't know. It's a Kiss album. I'd never give it up, but I mean, it's like publicity.
To do something like that for promotional purposes.
Well, it was funny because they were all about making it big, but they didn't want to do that back then because they thought the song was dumb, the concept of a kissing contest was dumb, and Kiss was really dark into heavy metal, like, or what was to become heavy metal back then. So they were like, yeah, I don't know. But the label's like, oh, come on. This is the same label that put out the Village People later on, mind you, and Donna Summer. So that's right. Kiss's label is the same label as the Village People, motherfuckers.
Well, that actually doesn't really surprise me too much, but
well, that's what the label was a bunch of one-hit wonders and like, flash in the pans things like like Village People. Like, how far could that possibly go? I mean, come on. But then they did Kiss, and people probably mocked that and said the same thing. But musically, Kiss was on it. And actually, speaking of that, have you heard today's subject band Hypocrisy, their cover of Kiss, Strange Ways?
I have not. Is it? I guess I didn't get to that album yet.
Well, it's on like an EP CD. It's from the Abducted recordings, the album Abducted.
Huh.
And there's a chicken CD. If you look at the album cover artwork, there's a raw chicken with like wires plugged into it and stuff. Well, anyway, they made it. Nuclear Blast at the time was into shaped CDs. So they made a CD shaped like this chicken. It was a horrible idea because it was cut out like a chicken. It had these jagged little wings and like legs on it. I'm like, man, just putting this in my CD player makes me scared. And it really didn't work. But I did it once and just copied the songs onto a computer, and I never played it again. But anyways, there's a different version of I can't remember. There's some song on there. It's a slightly different version, but they cover "Strange Ways" by Kiss, which is the last song on "Hotter Than Hell," which is like the heaviest song on one of their heaviest albums.
Yeah.
And they do it pretty good. It's not bad. It's a pretty good version. Peter's totally a Kiss fan. There was photos of him wearing like the Kiss Psycho Circus hockey jersey during some live shows back in those times. And I had that jersey too. Some friends got it for me. It was ridiculous. It was fucking huge.
So let me tell you which ones I've made it through, right?
Okay.
So the final chapter.
Okay, that's a good one.
Self-titled.
That's a good one.
Into the Abyss.
That's mediocre, I think.
Actually, I kind of, if there was like so far, like I would say that's the weakest one. Catch-22, The Arrival.
Oh, so you heard Catch me too.
Oh yeah. I really like Catch-22. In fact, I would actually say Catch-22. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that that's probably their controversial album.
Well, it is because I told you before that it was like heavily influenced by Slipknot, and he unashamed.
That's the one. That. Okay. Yeah, and I'd say the reason I like that one is just groove. It has like those super chunky grooves, which I dig. You know, and then I got The Arrival, Virus, Taste of the Extreme.
The Arrival was kind of boring. At that point, it sounds like they were just reaching really hard for more Alien stuff, and it just wasn't coming.
And okay. End of Disclosure, I think, was their return to form.
Which one?
End of Disclosure.
Which?
End of Disclosure.
End of Disclosure. Oh, does that have like a demon on the front of it?
Yeah.
I had not heard that one. I didn't know that one existed until I saw this new one coming out, and I went and looked, and I guess this Disclosure thing popped up. I'm like, oh wow.
Well, and I'm about halfway through Worship.
Okay, so you give me first your thoughts, and then I'll go off.
Well, I don't know, man. They just sound like every other death, like they remind me a lot like Immolation.
Get out of here.
I'm just kidding, dude.
Did you listen to Abducted?
Yeah.
And did you like that album, in particular the last two songs? What did you think of those?
Wait, no, I haven't got to Abducted yet.
Oh, come on, that's the best album.
I haven't been necessarily going in order. Isn't it Abducted is like 1995 or something, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's what we were talking about last week. They put out two albums that were pure death metal. There was the first one, Penetralia, the second one, Osculum Obscenum. Mm-hmm. And all those is just heavy Swedish death metal. It's good, but it's nothing really engaging. There's no real uniqueness about it. It's just Swedish heavy death metal. And at that time,
the artwork on Penetralia looks like the same dude that did
Dan Seagrave. He did
Entombed.
Everybody back then. Entombed, Gorguts, Suffocation.
Yeah, Suffocation. That was very identifiable artwork. Oh, and the other one, I think I bought the Fourth Dimension years ago, and I don't know what happened to it. But that's another one I need to listen to as well. I didn't get to Fourth Dimension yet.
Well, they put out 2 death metal albums, those 2 I said, and then after that, they did a series of EPs because there was lineup changes and stuff. And this is around the time black metal was coming out too, and their singer of that time, Massey Broberg, left the band to form Dark Funeral, and he was the singer of Dark Funeral for years after that.
Okay, well, and I was gonna say, like, I could see why you like Hypocrisy though. Like, the kind of the common thread so far between every album is almost like they're almost like an intersection of thrash, death, and black metal.
Well, he does
Like
it all.
they touch on all 3 of those genres pretty
Well, this
consistently.
is why it's crucial that you listen to the album Abducted, because the first 2 pieces were pure death metal. Okay, Swedish death, it was good, nothing groundbreaking. The third record, the third proper full album, is Fourth Dimension. That one's different for many reasons because they ditched their logo, their fiery death metal logo. It's just straight letters. They have a different cover. There's no painting. It's a guy in the chair, like taped into
And
the chair.
that's when they kind of went to the alien sort of.
Not so much on that one, but that album was like it was slower and like they lost that fuzzy Gothenburg death metal sound, but they took on more of like a sludgy, like a dark sound. That's where you also start to hear those vocal like melodies that they do, and the whole band does like this chorus, like oh
Yeah. And you know what? Like I was gonna say, like, I hear like I could, like, there's a couple of bands that sort of do those melodies that I listen to, and it kind of makes sense. Like, that's where they got them. So, like, I can hear the Hypocrisy influence on. Have you heard of Kettle Decapitation?
I have. All I know about them is they're kind of a Cannibal Corpse type of band, but vegetarian.
Not really. They're actually probably more technical than Cannibal Corpse probably, but they have those same kind of choruses where it's like I don't know they're almost hooky, but with a real sort of snarly voice.
They're one of those bands you don't give the time of day to because they have a certain element that you may or may not agree with, and that taints or colors your perception of the band. Which I'm like that, and I shouldn't. But like, say, Mortification, for example, they're a heavy death metal band from Australia, but they're Christ
Christian.
worshippers. But they're a good band. Lyrically, they're ridiculous, and just to me, religion is ridiculous. But as death metal, they're fucking good. You would never know if you just heard it.
Oh yeah, I like more Tourniquet, Mortification, dude. I'm all about the Christian metal.
But Hypocrisy, they did that album. So they did the Fourth Dimension. It was slower, dirgier, more mid-tempo. The sound was cleaned up. It didn't have that fuzzy, heavy death metal Gothenburg thing. They were totally trying to change. And then that's when they did the album Abducted, which had a lot of influences. There's like super heavy, fast, thrashy riffs. There's high, scratchy black metal vocals. There's low, deep death metal growls. There's slow, heavy, chunky death metal songs. There's the 2 songs at the end, which are like clean vocals, but like really weird, just keyboard, like X-Files, like something you'd see at the ending credits of the X-Files movie. It's just this weird, despondent keyboard metal, like just weird stuff. And it's so good. That was one of the best things about that. It was such a surprise too, because you have this all over the place with brutal, heavy vocals. They just follow the band. Then you have like slow, heavy songs, high and low vocals, this crazy subject matter, and all of a sudden, the last 2 songs just like kind of wean you right off the album nicely. And it's a perfect record. Perfect death metal album, or black metal almost, but maybe not so much black metal, but it does have those elements. And the thing too is you got to figure at this time Peter is running his studio, Abyss Studios, and he produced so many bands out of Nuclear Blast catalog and elsewhere, like just producing them. So of course he probably got influenced by a lot of it, like Marduk, Celtic Frost when they got back together. Flesh Crawl from Germany, like Dimmu Borgir, all these bands came through his studio and he produced them. And they owe him their allegiance because his production is what got them partly where they're at. And then That's why I was
So
like, why is Dimmu Borgir touring with Hypocrisy opening? It should be the other fucking way around. But okay, whatever.
some bands get bigger for whatever reason, you know.
They're on the same
So
label.
would Abducted, would that be kind of when they started their sound sort of gelled, like they kind of found their own?
Yeah, Abducted is when they really found their mojo, and that's when the Aliens thing started, and that was like a whole different direction for them, and no other band had done that, and anyone who would try to do it since then would just look ridiculous. I mean, the whole thing, like all the way down to lies, corruption, government, deceit, all of that stuff, up to like being dissected and all of it. And, even the intro is like a guy in an airplane talking about seeing a UFO coming towards him. It's just fucking cool. Like nobody did that. It was so good. And that's when all those styles kind of clash in there, but they don't clash badly. They just merge very nicely, and the whole album is just perfect. And the next album, which was the final chapter, was supposed to have been their last album, and it was really good. And it was so good, everybody was just begging them. Like I remember being on the Nuclear Blast website, everybody was like, "Don't break up, don't break up." And then like maybe a year or two elapsed, and the band finally said they announced they're not going to break up. They got back together, the original, like the three that we were used to by this point. And they put out a record called 10 Years of Chaos and Confusion. And that was like mostly just best of and like a few remixes of stuff that he'd done previously. And then Catch 22 came out after that. Or actually, no, that's not true. It was Hypocrisy, the self-titled one. And you heard that one, right? What did you think of that one?
Yeah. So that one
Did
actually,
you
I,
hear
I
the Judas Priest
wasn't.
influence I was referring to?
That one had to choose. Maybe guitar sound wise.
Guitar sound is there. I think it's very Priest-like. And then if you listen to some of his vocals, even though he's screeching, you can hear him go like that. Really Rob Halford style. Like I think there's a lot of Priest element there.
I wasn't really getting that, but I think maybe if I listened to it again with that sort of that mindset, maybe I might be able to hear the Priest. Believe it or not, it's the one that so far has maybe resonated the least with me, is that self-titled one. And I was gonna say I think it was because it's probably the one that sounded most black metal to me so far, except for The Arrival. I don't know why. The Arrival sounded more black metal.
I don't know. The Arrival to me was like just kind of just
Boring.
slow. What?
But it has like that kind of, like that black metal when they go melodic. That's sort of what The Arrival like sounds like to me.
Yeah, I can't argue that. It was melodic, and then it had I don't know, just slower songs, and like it was still doing the alien thing, and they were going for all
kind
the
of
hard stuff.
Atmospheric.
Yeah.
Or they're trying to do a little more atmospheric stuff on that one, which makes sense. I mean, if they're trying to really capture like an alien vibe, which I don't know if they succeeded or not. But I will say, like I said, so far, the one I liked the most was the one I thought I'd hate the most, obviously, which would be Catch 22. But I think it's because I think with the when you said they were influenced by Slipknot, it was probably just having like some defined riffs. So there's a song in there called Destroyed, which just has a fucking killer, just crunchy riff. That's what it's all about with me, man. I just love, dude, I
Well,
love
that's
those
why I thought
massive
you liked
riffs.
that, because you're the kind of guy who would put aside the whole is Slipknot metal thing and just like them for what they are. Me, it's just like, no, they're not metal, but fuck them.
Yeah, no, which is funny because like, I, there's something about Slipknot's vibe that I just okay, and maybe it's because like okay, when I was working at Musician's Friend, I was doing like phone, like customer service. The guys in Slipknot actually called it was before they got famous, and they were using their mom's credit card to buy like a microphone, and they were just being dicks. And I'm like, they're like, you're gonna hear about me. You're gonna hear about us. We're Slipknot. I'm like, all right. He's like, we got 8 guys in the band. Like they were like bragging.
I was gonna ask you how many guys are there, and what do they all fucking do? Like, there's only so many drums and guitars you can
Yeah,
have.
dude. Well, that's what I mean. It's
They have a
like
tambourine player, or what the fuck?
pretty much like a glorified town. They got the clown guy that fucking plays garbage cans. I don't know. Like, and I think just after that, I'm just like, fuck these guys. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's good. Maybe good for them. Maybe they're just cocky, and that's how you should be But like, I'm just like, I'm making $10 an hour talking to these guys, you know, and I'm going to be like, I need your mom's permission for you to use this credit card, like, uh, so I don't know. They just rubbed me the wrong way, man.
So
And I
what you're
think ever
saying
since then,
is, huh?
pardon, what was that?
I was gonna say that what you're saying is, at one point you had Slipknot's career in your hands,
I know. What I'm saying is I
and you
made
let it
them.
go.
No, no, I didn't. I sold them the microphone, the SM58 they were ordering.
That's what I'm
I
saying. You
I
had the
made
chance
that
to stop
band.
them, and you didn't do it.
They need to fucking, I need my percentage is what I'm trying to say. No, but just like and then just when they came out, it's like that vibe carried over with just their whole thing. It's like, oh, ooh, you got a scary clown. Awesome.
Well,
They're
yeah,
just
but
so
that's what I'm
cool and
saying. You
scary.
should never meet your idols. Like, I've always heard that. I've always thought that too, because they're just
I
some
don't know.
ass dickhead
Should
too.
never meet your not idols either. Like, like
Well,
I
I
don't
mean,
know, like
whoever, but it's just that's what I'm saying. And actually, it's not always the case, because Peter from
I,
Hypocrisy is an absolute 100% rock star, but in the positive term of the word. He's such a great
yeah,
guy, super talented, really nice. Totally will give you an autograph, like won't act put out, cool guy, like fucking great guy all the
yeah.
way around. There's
Like David Vincent, dude, when we were just hanging out
Yeah,
with him at that show.
David Vincent. That's why I stayed in line to meet him, because otherwise I'd be like, whatever. But I wanted to meet him because I think he's cool. I respect him, and because he got so much shit for that record, and I just wanted to be the guy to say, hey, I like the record. Fuck everybody else. And he said, I like it too. I'm like, well, there you go, brother. And
Yeah.
but
No, but most of the time, like I'd say like almost every time I've met like technically one of my idols, I've been pretty I think I've been pretty lucky. Like I haven't met anybody that was a dick
I
so
haven't met
far.
most. I mean, I've met most of the guy, or not most, but I mean a lot of guys from the grindcore and death metal scene, and they were all cool. Like Napalm Death, Godflesh was
They
really.
have to be. Like if you're playing extreme metal, dude, every fan counts,
Well,
you know.
that's not necessarily true. They're just down there on the floor because they love this music like we do. They're just all
That's
into
what
it.
I
That's
mean.
the thing.
Yeah.
It used to be back in the day, you could write to these bands and tape trade. That's how they all got to where they're at. Like this
Right.
common people, like with tape trade. That's how Mitch Harris, the guitarist of Napalm Death, came to be in the band, because he would tape trade with the guys in the band, and
Hmm.
they'd be like, "Have you heard this? Check this out." And everybody was just into the music. So I have to say, like, probably the guys I haven't met that I think would probably be the biggest douchebags would probably be Kiss,
Oh,
because
for
Paul
sure, dude.
Stanley has this habit of running away from people because he doesn't want to put up with people like hounding him for autographs and stuff. And I guess you can understand that to an extent, but come on,
Yeah.
because I have
And
a
it's
his story.
served them well.
I,
What I see with Kiss, and it's weird because like part of me really would love to meet him, and like have a good conversation with him, but every time I see them interviewed, they seem very evasive with questions and things like that. But I'd love to like sit Paul Stanley down, and, like, listen, man, like I just want to talk
sit
about
down and read him
Animalize.
the riot act. Now you listen to me, young man.
No, I just be like, look, man, Animalize was such a fucking big album to me. Like it's one of those albums that like is a milestone in your music listening, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
bullshit.
started with
This
Kiss earlier, but like that was my insertion point with Kiss. Well, actually no, my
That's
first
where they stuck
experience
it
with
in.
Kiss, that's when they stuck it in me.
Which one?
Um no, actually, so the first time I saw Kiss, was, do you remember that there was like a science show called 321 Contact?
Yep, I remember that. And that's where the guy was talking about how he makes Gene Simmons' voice sound like a monster, right?
Well, they were going through like the whole like stage setup and
Yeah,
everything.
it was the roadies, and the roadies said, "This is how Gene Simmons sounds like a monster." And I remember.
Yeah, and you know, like, and then it kind of shows a couple of clips where they smashing their guitars at the end. I'm like, holy crap. Like, that was just crazy, you know. And I'm like 3 years old, 4 years old, going, whoa. But you know, like the first time I actually like listened to Kiss was Animalize. And I think that album does have like its own vibe from that's separate from everything else. But I would love to, like, just like I said, talk to Paul. Like, apparently Gene wasn't very involved with that one. That was when he was being
No,
an
he wasn't.
actor.
That's when he was trying to be Charles Luther in Runaway.
Which I think is even more impressive because like he's usually the guy that kind of is, well, I don't know, like maybe is the one that's sort of, his image is like the heavy guy, right? Like, I
Yep.
write the angry songs, I write the da da da. But I find Animalize to be like such an aggressive, like, kind of pissed off album.
Well,
And
here's part of the
in
reason.
reading Paul Stanley's book, like you know, he really doesn't spend a lot of time on Animalize. Just the fact that he's like, I had to pretty much carry that whole album, and
Well, here's
Gene was
part of the
off
reason
to his
too.
shit.
Is Paul was all about the ballads and the beloved power ballads, all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Eric Carr, their drummer after Peter Criss, was really into thrash metal, and he was always really straightforward and into the band, contributing. And a lot of what he did back then was very thrash influenced. That's why Animalize is so fast.
yeah,
And there's a
loved
few
it.
songs on Asylum that are kind of fast too.
Mhm.
So part of that's Eric Carr, the drummer, and he doesn't really get much credit for it, which is sad because Eric Carr is like a fucking criminally underrated drummer. I love
Oh,
Eric.
dude,
He's my favorite drummer.
the shuffle that like, um the shuffle he does like in Murder in High Hills, man, that fucking swings. That swings as good as any jazz like drummer. Like, you know, and I listen to a lot of jazz as well. But yeah, like, uh yeah, Murder in High Hills. Just
Yep.
that shuffle he does is just, yeah.
That was
Yeah,
my
man.
favorite song on that record when I bought it because it was like the Gene Simmons heavy song.
I thought the Gene Simmons heavy song would be Burn Bitch Burn.
That was the other one. I was just going to say, not only that, but of course, how can you beat "Let Me Put My Log Into Your Fireplace"? I mean, the
Oh,
best.
dude, every
You
line of that song is a fucking, it's an
And then
act
when
of
you can't think
thrust
of
any
a
way you
raunchy lyric,
slice it.
he just throws in "my, yeah."
Yeah, yeah. Just
Okay.
listen to me, babe.
Yeah. I'm like, even
Oh,
as
dude,
a kid, like, fuck, I could have written better lyrics than this shit. What's this? They're fucking stupid. And then they're all singing, woo, woo, woo.
oh yeah, dude. But
So,
it's
anyway,
catchy as hell.
getting
That's a
back to
great song.
science and the hypocrisy, what I was going to say is I had a friend who was in the Crossroads Mall here in Salt Lake back in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
Saw Paul Stanley sitting on a bench in the mall, like started to walk towards him. Paul Stanley looked up, saw him, ran the fuck away. And I never
Yeah,
believed a friend who told me that. But here's the thing: is I've heard that story multiple times from different people. Like
yeah.
Paul is like a really kind of introverted like guy. He's also very, very sensitive. Like anything you say, like super offends him, and you're done. You'll never be back in his good graces after that. Like
Ask
Eddie
Eddie
Trunk.
Trunk.
That's Eddie Trunk. Yeah, there you go. Like Eddie Trunk is like
Yeah,
the biggest Kiss fan ever that did so much for them, and like he is 86, like 100%, and by Gene too, only because of Paul. Like Gene still will
yeah.
be.
Well, yeah. Well, they kind of they make those decisions together jointly.
But Hypocrisy's Catch-22, you would say that would be their Animalize, maybe, kind of,
Well,
because it's a different style. You got to
it
think
is a
like
different style.
Kiss had Creatures and Lick It Up, two of their heaviest albums ever. One of them was monumental because it was heavy, the other because they took off their makeup. So Catch-22 is like stripped down Hypocrisy again, like the last album, the one before it, the self-titled Hypocrisy. seems like they were like going a little bit back to their roots, like say with Judas Priest, because they still had the harmonic thing, the like the fan vocals, but then they had the vocals of him singing more like a lot of that, and you didn't hear that in death metal either. But then the next album, I think, was no, the next album, I'm getting confused now. The next album was The Arrival, I think.
Is that after Catch 22, or was it?
And then Catch 22, or was it the other way around? I can't fucking remember anymore. No, Catch 22 was before that. That's right. So Catch 22, and then that album kind of like didn't do so well, if I remember correctly. It was in the press, like got bad reviews, like in Terrorizer Mag, and all the fans weren't down with it. And he was kind of back up against the wall. I remember reading a few interviews with Peter where he was like, "Look, fuck you guys. You know, Slipknot's a good band. I know that album wasn't like everyone's favorite. It was just an experiment. You know, I think it's a great album." And so everybody's got their fucking Lemon album. Like Morbid Angel had Illudium, like Celtic Frost, Cold Lake. Mayhem had that Grand Declaration of War. Like everybody kind of hated that one. So now you have Hypocrisy with Catch 22. But you liked it.
I did, yeah. No, like I said, it's just because there was some like real good, crunchy, kind of, defined riffs. So if that's, and that's the thing. Like I don't hear that when I listen to Slipknot. I don't really get that from them. But if that's Peter's sort of, his interpretation of what a Slipknot influence is, then
maybe it's just the guitar thing. I don't know, because I can't say. I've never really heard much Slipknot. I couldn't even tell
neither have I.
Their music. Same with Marilyn Manson. He was also big back then. Like the
was
only
Peter into Marilyn Manson?
Huh?
Was
I don't think
Peter?
So. I don't know. I don't think so. But there's never going to be an album where they were influenced by Marilyn Manson. But I've never heard anything by him other than like the song on the Matrix soundtrack. So I have no idea what they're about.
What song was that? Was there a song in the Matrix soundtrack?
Yeah, I don't hear it in the movie, but it's on the Matrix soundtrack. So.
Was it? Then you're not missing anything, dude. Marilyn Manson fucking sucks.
Well, I know I'm not missing anything. That kind of music, like Slipknot and all of that, that's for the kids. Once again, I'll say this: there's always going to be two underground scenes. There's the one everybody thinks they're super underground that like Slayer, Ministry, Marilyn Manson, Slipknot.
When you ask them like you tell them you're a metalhead, and they're like, "Yeah, I am too, man."
Five-Finger
Death. Now here's the thing with Five Finger Death Punch. Like
that's just fucking Bob Seger heavy.
yeah, but it's funny. It's because their guitar player, his name's Jason Hook. I don't know if he's in the band still, but fucking amazing guitar player. He had this other band called what's it called? Monkey Punch. That's really good. Kind of like a heavier Extreme. The band Extreme.
Porno Graffiti?
Yeah, kind of like a heavy, like imagine Porno Graffiti, but just crunchier and almost heavy, like as if that album could get crunchier. It's an amazing album. But yeah, kind of like in that vibe, like really riffy and funky. Yeah, really good.
What the hell was that?
That's one of Angie's dogs. House sitting, babysitting her dogs while she's on vacation. What's that?
Did you just kill a dog or something? I just heard some like jingling metal and like wet.
No, it's just one of, like I said, I'm babysitting Angie's dogs. Well,
no animals were harmed in the making of this radio show, ladies and gentlemen. Animalize, exactly.
Yeah, this is a little.
Well, anyways,
this dog has Down syndrome. What?
No, brother.
But yeah, they never got anywhere. And then after that,
The Arrival, like I think that was, to me, when I heard The Arrival, that was when I had The Abyss, my record shop, and that came in, and everybody was all excited because they knew I liked Hypocrisy. We put it on, and I was just like, there's really nothing grabbing me here. It's just kind of it seems like it's just a lot of filler. Like there's not much here. They had a song called The Abyss, which they'd already recorded before. There was another version of it from before that was really good. That one was pretty good too. Other than that, nothing really stood out. I didn't really get into it. I don't even.
You know, I wouldn't call it like a flop, but I would say that it's almost like, so look, man, like at that point, so when they get to the Arrival, they're what, 6 albums in almost? 5?
And I think we're forgetting too. There's also Into the Abyss. That's the one that came after the Hypocrisy. So Into the
Okay.
Abyss. Now that album, I know they recorded on purpose. They did it in a few days just to go in there and bust out an album. That was exactly what he said in the press.
Really?
So they went in there and said, "We're just going to bust out an album and just like do it really quickly, not think about it, not do all these arrangements. We're just going to do it." And he did it, and the result was Into the Abyss. And it wasn't like horrible, but it wasn't really great. Again, it was like,
It's
well,
like it's almost like they kind of have the same thing as like Carcass, you know. So like Carcass is like what, like, so Swan Song was their, oh, that's our contract album, blah blah blah. But it's still better than most of the shit that's out there. You know what I mean? And I would say that, yeah, the Arrival might be kind of a little bit of a low in it, but it's still pretty solid. I would say, like, there's nothing
that's one I'm going to have to go back
terrible
and
off.
revisit because when I had the Abyss, my shop, it was 2005, 2004, and 5, and I heard that album then. And I
Mhm.
got to be honest, I have not listened to it since because I was so underwhelmed by it. So it's probably time to revisit that one.
Yeah.
But all the other ones, like Into the Abyss, it was like it was okay. It was good, but there wasn't anything like. Here's my problem: is once you put out an album like Abducted and the Final Chapter,
Mhm.
like you got to do something really great to follow it up. And their self-titled one was good. I like that one. But after that, I'm thinking, okay, it's probably time to wrap up this alien thing now because you've gotten all you're going to get out of it, Peter. And I think maybe you go back to the satanic stuff or, maybe go to like death metal, like covering like snuff film underground or something, or just go somewhere else no one's done, like 8 millimeter death metal. But
Nick,
the
Nicholas
alien,
Cage metal. That'll be a new genre.
no, no. The alien thing, though, it was getting played out, and I think maybe he kind of trapped himself a little bit. Like, man, this is just me theorizing, but
Kind
maybe
of typecast.
maybe he kind of like felt like he had to keep doing that, or he had a few things to say and then had those songs, but then the rest of it he had to throw out some stuff too to keep it on that same tack. So he just did some filler stuff. That's kind of how it feels. There's like one or two good songs, and the rest is just kind of there on that album, on Into the Abyss. And I think after that, like they kind of disappeared for a while, and then they came back later with Virus.
Hmm.
And I have not really heard anything from them since then, all the way through. But like Virus, from what I've heard of it, sounds like just basic, straight up, just hypocrisy death metal. And then the Taste of Extreme Divinity, same thing, just like even more thrashy. And I love the title, like Taste the Extreme Divinity. Is that about like kick-ass Easter candy?
Yeah, yeah.
You know what divinity is, right?
Oh yeah, it's like that fluffy kind of
That soft, gooey, sugary fluff stuff. I'm like,
fluffy
yeah,
white
extreme divinity, metal, bro.
extreme divinity.
Satan's divinity. It's green and red and sweet.
Right. And their next album is gonna be like fucking the Devil's Whorehound and
Cadbury
uh,
eggs, but rotten.
what
So I don't
is
know.
in a Cadbury egg?
After that, I lost track of them. And like when I saw this new album coming out, what's the new album called again?
Now I want a Cadbury egg, but I'm afraid my fucking pancreas will just crawl out of me.
Yeah. Well,
The new
I'm
album's called
sorry. I will do
oh,
Satanic Healing on Your Gut tonight. What was the new album called by Hypocrisy? I forget already. The one with the Aztec
Worship,
people.
or the newest one is Worship.
Okay, now here's that one. Did you
Looks
listen to
like
that one?
they're doing another alien kind of theme on that one though. It's like they've gone back to that.
Yeah, they have. I mean, that's what they do, and it looks kind of cool. And like, I gotta say, once again, what was your take on it? Because I listened to it all the way through, and I thought it's good. It's by the numbers Hypocrisy. There's nothing really bad, but there's again nothing like totally kicking my ass. But it's a good album. It's a really good album.
So
Am
this
I
is
being
kind
too
of like,
looking for getting my ass kicked by like Abducted again, or am I being too judgmental or?
I think okay, so I think at that point it starts to become like it's us are the problem. You know what I mean?
We are.
It's like AC/DC, right? Like a great AC/DC album is not going to break any new ground. Let's not kid
And let me ask
ourselves.
you this on the topic of AC/DC, because I think I know where you're going with this. But Highway to Hell is everybody's favorite record. That's the Aberration AC/DC record, isn't it?
Is it?
Well, I was
I don't know.
that's their
Here's the
Aberration
thing.
because the producer made them do those backing vocals of the whole band going like "Girls Got Rhythm" and all that, or "Walk All Over." Like before that, they didn't really do that. It was just Bon Scott singing.
Well, yeah, and here's kind of like this is why like I I think maybe AC/DC, like I almost have the same thing as with Kiss, right? Like I don't I prefer the Brian Johnson era AC/DC.
You
So
would, God damn it.
what? Back
Everything
in Black.
everybody else
One of
hates,
here,
like,
my
and vice.
favorite AC/DC album is probably the Animalized of AC/DC albums,
You're like,
which
can't
is
you
Fly
guys?
on the Wall.
Lake is the best Celtic Frost record, and it's Celtic Frost, not Celtic Frost. God damn it!
Who the fuck says Celtic Frost? Are you
Everybody,
back east? Do you live in Boston? It's Celtic.
everybody here in America says Celtic Frost because their exposure to the word Celt or Celtic is Celtic, as in the Boston Celtics. That is it. No other reason. I
I
learned about
know that, and that's
Celts
why
in
I said
school.
I call him Celtic Frost.
That's their name, and that's what Tom Warrior calls them. But when he's here, and everybody argues this with me, well, Tom Warrior says Celtic Frost. I'm like, he does it because he knows you morons in America can't pronounce it right. So he just fucking goes with it.
Oh, I thought you were coming down on me for calling him Celtic Frost. I'm like,
No,
what? I'm
not at
saying it
all.
right.
There was a time when I did my radio show here, and this guy called me up on the air and mocked me for not having any. I said, dude, I got every Celtic Frost record. Fuck you, pussy. You're mocking me. I'm like their best fan ever. Fuck off. And he's like, you can't even say their name. I'm like, you can't say their name. Celtic Frost is how it's pronounced. And the guy goes off on me. I hung up on his ass and I played some on the air. I was like, fuck you. Like, you don't know. It's not Celtic, it's Celtic.
Yeah.
It's on the Celts, the pagan tribes that lived in England.
I can't even say Boston Celtics anymore. Like I'll call them the Boston Celtics. Are they
Well,
even
I
in
don't
Boston
talk
anymore?
about
Like that's
basketball way, so
I was gonna say, are they even a team anymore? Like I don't know. I don't follow.
I think they are. They're in the playoffs or something against the Globetrotters or somebody right now. So
It's the Washington Generals always. One of these days they'll win. But
it's all about Curly Neal. Fuck those other teams. The Globetrotters got it.
yeah, dude. There's
So,
no one
anyways, you were
tops them.
saying ACDC, like what? They're
Yeah, I was gonna say I my favorite AC/DC album is probably the Animalized of AC/DC albums, which is Fly on the Wall. Love
now,
it.
that's funny that you say that. That's funny that you say that because to me and every ACDC fan I know, as well as myself, and I'm not an ACDC fan, really hate that album.
It's a great album.
It's you do this. It's classic that you do this. But then I'm the same guy with everybody else. Everybody else loves something and I hate it. It worked. Like people cannot get past the fact that I don't like what they like. But ACDC Fly on the Wall, I
Yeah.
remember when that came out, I'm like, what is this? This is just fucking dumb. Like Danger? What the fuck is that? Dun 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 dun. Don't talk to
Well,
strangers. I'm like, what is
that's
this?
actually my least favorite song in that, but like the other ones are like Hell or High Water or Sink the Pink.
Sing,
Just
sing.
crunchy, groovy, good fucking AC. Like it's AC/DC though. Like what do you expect from them? At that point. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like
everybody else was going glam at that time too. That's when all the bands are starting to go glam.
yeah, and
And I
people were I
remember
think
that time.
people think that Fly on the Wall is the AC/DC glam album, right? Just like they think Turbo is Judas Priest's glam album.
That's as
And
close as
I
I got. Yeah.
and I go back and listen to Turbo and go, this is almost some of the songs are almost as heavy as Painkiller. Like it's you see the signs of Painkiller in Turbo.
You have to put it in perspective though. Like if you were there at that time,
Uh-huh.
Like if you're listening to Judas Priest, if you're listening to Kiss, Creatures of the Night, and then 2 albums later they give you Asylum, Oh No, Tears Are Falling, and they're wearing green tasseled shoes and shit, and
Yeah,
with
but
makeup
but
and
they gave you
sequins.
Animalize though
Well, yeah, but that was a natural
first.
progression, and then you have and Judas Priest comes out with instead of spikes and leather, they're wearing these like crazy like Sergeant Pepper outfits with like long curly hair, and they're
Yeah,
singing about love and partying and fast cars. I'm like, okay, well, but it has a twist on it that's glammy. At
but
that time,
they always kind of sung part like they had
they
Living
do.
After
But that's what I'm
Midnight.
saying. It's the way it was presented, though, at that time, and this is probably
Yeah,
major label interference, but at that
yeah,
time,
yeah.
it was marketing it like that. So Kiss did that,
Okay, image wise, yeah.
Priest did that.
But music,
AC/DC didn't do that though, but that was their big popular record back then.
yeah. I mean, I suppose it was, but I don't
That
know. Like,
AC/DC's never been more public at that time than that record. I remember the videos were all over MTV and Headbangers Ball, and I couldn't stand it. I hated that record. I don't know why.
you're thinking of the one that came after that, Blow Up Your Video. That's
Uh,
when they were really.
well, I mean, after that, they became the mainstay of just kind of like lung-headed, like bonehead rock anthem shit. They always were, but got bigger after that. Like, is that the one that had Come On, Let Me Hear Your Money Talk"?
Yeah, Love Me for the Money, and that's a good album, but like,
Oh
but
man.
Fly on the Wall is like it still has that sleaze, that gritty, London AC/DC thing, like,
Well,
but
I gotta be honest with you too, is the other reason why AC/DC, Fly on the Wall, and Judas Priest Turbo, and Iron Maiden Somewhere in Time, why those all had bad mojo for me, and Kiss Asylum. That's the time that I moved to Salt Lake City, Utah. It's 1985. So during
uh,
that time in '86, like music was going through this progression of like going into glam rock, and that was horrible. Culture shock of moving from someplace like a real state to here was just like weird as fuck. Like, what the hell? Where am I? What is this? And then once you figure it out, okay, you figured it out. But Iron Maiden even came out with Somewhere in Time, which I'm sure you love, and I really don't like that album very much. Not because they didn't go glam, but they had a very accessible synth guitar sound that I did not like.
you
You
know,
know,
I I'm like kind of indifferent on the Summer in Time. So like the Maiden albums for me were probably number one would be Power Slave actually, and then um like if we're talking about Maiden albums that like people kind of frown upon, I really love Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
I don't like
That's
that one either. Not a fan.
and
Everybody
I was gonna
loves
say
that. I
that's even
like,
more synth heavy than Somewhere in Time.
yeah, it is. It is, and I don't like it.
And to be honest with you, like after Seventh Son, I it's not that I love Maiden any less, but I think a lot of bands once they reach like a certain level of prolific writing, I just stop keeping up. I don't know why. Like I'll still check out the albums and everything, but I just don't like consume it, you know what I mean? Like I used to. Um, it happened with Dream Theater, believe it or not. Like after what album was it where I kind of started to not pay as much attention to him. I
Well,
still
there's
love him.
bands you stick with them, and you're with them forever, and you, I guess you could say you grow out of it. I hate to use that term, but after you've heard them do everything they can do. But this is funny because again, I'm going to bring up Kiss again.
Uh-huh.
Is just recently I've had this like thing about Alice in Chains, where I've been listening to Alice in Chains nonstop. I don't know why, because I'm not a grunge
Fucking
fan.
grunge goof.
No, but
What?
the Alice in Chains was actually, I would say they were a heavy metal band.
I'd
I
say
would
they were
go,
they were a glam band. Have you seen old pictures of them?
well, whatever they were, they had a good heavy sound, but they had those
Yeah,
really great bluesy vocals that they did.
sure.
It was good. It was really heavy. It was different. Kiss did, and I know we've talked about this, but Kiss did Carnival of Souls, their attempt at a glam record, super influenced by Alice in Chains only. Great Kiss album.
I'll have
Could
to
you
check it
accept
out. I've
them as
never
becoming
listened to the Carnival
Kiss?
of Souls.
could you listen to grunge if you knew it was Kiss? Because you've got Kiss singing despondent lyrics and all this stuff, and you know they're just a bunch of rich rock stars, and they're acting like they're depressed and shit.
No,
That's why
in
they
fact,
abandoned it. But it's
well,
good.
no,
It's
and
really
I hated, dude, I hated it when I heard like, because a lot of, okay, you knew I was into hair metal, right? So when grunge hit, a lot of those hair metal bands with the sound tried to adopt it, and like, dude, it just,
they did. Like who?
okay, so Dokken tried to do it. I
Really?
think Rat put out like a grunge album.
Dokken and
Uh,
Rad are both so glammy and so melodic, though. It's weird.
yeah, yeah, they tried to kind of get like all dark, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't even say they tried to go grunge, but they're like, oh, we need to be dark and
They
serious,
saw which way the wind was blowing, and they
yeah,
adopted a little bit of that sound.
they tried to kind of do, and
But let me
it comes
ask you
across
this.
as disingenuous.
Let me ask you this. A movie came out at that time called Rockstar, starring Mark Wahlberg.
I'd almost say that probably helped reinvigorate hard rock. I don't know, but I
But
hated
that's
the
his
ending of
movie,
that
though. In
movie.
that movie, he's a rock star, but he
And they,
goes grunge at the end. He's like,
that
gave it
fucking
all up.
yeah, like I remember I went and saw that with Brandy. And I remember, like, because like in the end, he's like wearing a fucking turtleneck
Yeah,
and
with a
in a
flannel shirt.
coffee
I'm like,
shop
who
with an
the
acoustic
fuck?
guitar.
No fucking metal band ever did that. But now you're telling me they did.
Well, no, okay, but they didn't do it to that extent. Like, here's the thing. Here's my problem with Rockstar. Let's just go on that. Like, no one is that big of a fan of metal. You know what I mean? Like, do you know anybody that like was that into a style of music that like just reversed everything? Like, oh, I'm into coffee shop fucking lesbian folk music now.
Well, that's a
After just,
Hollywood take on it, and like we said, no real metal fan ever just totally abandons it like that. Anyone who did was never really metal in the first place, meaning they weren't
you know,
into it all their lives.
if
Like,
that story should have had like two like kind of endings, okay? Like that first one where like she runs into him and he's playing in a coffee shop, with his his somber,
yeah,
emotional music. And then like a month later he's like, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. I was in a really weird spot, but I'm back into metal now, so everything's cool. Like that would be the trajectory.
and all of us real metalheads who are still here would be like, "Fuck you, get out of here. You're
Yeah,
not metal."
whatever, poser. Yeah,
So, anyways, we
take
got way off
that
track there.
cello and shove it up your ass, man.
Somehow we were talking about which Hypocrisy album were we on? The new one?
We were on, yeah, Hypocrisy's Fly on the Wall.
Oh yeah,
Um,
we went off on AC/DC and it went to
no,
that.
so what I was kind of saying though, like, is I think there reaches a point where you have to like almost appreciate what a band is doing, like, because they're I think they reach a point where it's like, okay, well, this is what we are, right? This is the kind of music we make, and there's not going to be anything at that point that's going to blow you away, or that's going to like be like really just groundbreaking as far as they go. So you appreciate them for just putting out another Hypocrisy album, if that makes sense, because it sounds like Hypocrisy. All the elements are there that make Hypocrisy, that made them what they were. And just because there's not much they can do beyond that than be
I like the record.
Hypocrisy.
I like the new album, and it's good. It's I guess maybe I'm just like looking to get like my ass kicked again by them because what
Yeah,
happened with
but you're
Abducted?
not going to, because they they've already kicked your ass.
See, that's what
and
happened with
and what
Abducted.
they did to kick your ass, they they're still doing it, but it's not kicking your ass anymore. Does that make sense?
Well, the way Abducted worked out though is they put out two, like I said, pretty standard death metal albums. They were good, but they weren't like anything fantastic to me because everything else at the time sounded like that.
Mhm.
Then they put out Fourth Dimension, which was kind of anticlimactic in a way because of the image of it. The logo is gone, like the everything was different. It was weird. The sound was like muddied down. So I kind of blew them up. I was like, all right, yeah, whatever, Hypocrisy, fuck them then. And one day I was working at the radio station. I saw Hypocrisy abducted in there. And I was like, what's this? That looks interesting. Aliens. That's cool. What's that? So I took it home and listened to it like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Went out
I mean,
and bought
they
my
might still be able to do that, but I think at this point, I think it's asking too much of a band that's 2 decades, 3 decades in
But I don't think it is. I
to
think a
do
band
something.
he could do that because he's reinvented himself numerous times. And you also got to
Yeah.
look, that's why I sent you his other projects that you didn't listen to yet, like Abyss and Pain and Total War.
Well,
Like,
okay, so those are the ones. So that's how he's kicking your ass again. Like
that's
he's
true.
doing it with
Pain
different
was really the
projects.
jam when it started out.
But with Hypocrisy, he's going to play Hypocrisy. So and I think there's a certain amount of elements
See, at this
that
point, I
that make
almost accept
Hypocrisy what they are.
what I would like is for Hypocrisy now, at this point, to do another album, just like straight up satanic death metal again. No high vocals, or maybe do some high vocals, but just straight up satanic death metal. No aliens, no harmonic stuff. Just boom, kick the shit out of me. Like 10 songs of evil satanic death and black metal. That's what I want. Maybe
But what
that's what we
they
need
want,
metal
like,
is.
I think it goes back to that. Like, well, they could do that, but if they're not into it, like if they're not, it's not gonna translate into the music.
Well,
So
that's
they
what they
kind of
did
have to,
to the Abyss. They wanted to go back and do a simplistic album, just thrash it out, and they did, and it was good. But at that time, it wasn't what was needed, I think.
yeah.
Because they were in the middle of their alien thing, and it was all harmonic and just like melodic. And now I think now is the time. And here's another band is Dimmu Borgir. I was never into them, but I thought I saw that they were at one point coming back with like just 3 guys instead of 6 guys.
Uh-huh.
No corpse paint, no costumes, no keyboards, just straight up black metal. And that's how they started. I'm like, now that I want to hear because I don't like all the other horror shit they do where they have like this elaborate 12-page fold out CD booklet where they're in pictures like getting Jack Daniels put into their intravenous thing in the hospital, and they look like zombies and they have spikes all over their whole like shirt sleeves and bootlegs and all that, and keyboards like across the board, like 10-minute sweeping songs. I'm like, no, give me some kick-ass black metal. Like strip it down, scrub away all that bullshit. You're fucking old, you're grizzled up, you're pissed off still, you're ugly. Do it. Now, am I just dreaming, or can that happen?
I don't know, man. I think like I said, it's hard to know like what's going through the head of someone that like I said that far into their career. There's you get Metallica or something, and they just go way off the rails. And you kind of almost have to give it to them. You're just like, well, okay, I guess you've done all you could with the Master of Puppets and back sound. If you feel like you have to go, and a lot of them come back around, but like I don't know, like
Well,
because
Metallica did that too. Remember, they tried via their record label to recapture their old fan base because they basically fucked them all off with Load and Reload.
right,
They did
right.
Saint Anger, and Saint Anger was a piece of shit. Then they did Death Magnetic. I even like that one. I'm like, well, fuck, this
Yeah.
is good. This sounds like old Metallica again.
But do you
They got
think?
it
I
back.
mean, I think at this point though, sometimes though, like even though Death Magnetic is pretty a pretty solid return to form. I think there's part of me like when I listen to it, I'm like, man, are they real? Like, are they being genuine about this, or do they
That's why
still
I
want to
liked
be
it.
doing their Velvet Underground shit? You know what I mean?
That's why
Like,
I liked it because Saint Anger was a very insincere gesture on their behalf because it was trying to recapture with that snare sound and just they had a pus head drawing on their album cover again, which they hadn't had.
mhm.
And all of that was going back to what they thought was form, and it wasn't. They were so lost up their own asses that they didn't know what they were doing. But when they did Death Magnetic, it was actually there. The sound was there, the presentation, like the album cover, and not only that, but they actually let that album be downloaded for free, if I recall, and that's how I heard it, because they were kind of apologizing for being dicks about the whole Napster thing.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta admit they were kind of right about Napster,
Yeah, they were.
but you know, I think a lot of people are gonna be like, "Ooh, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to be so hard on you guys. You're kind of, you know,
Well, they were going to sue their fans for downloading their new song. That's just the way you check out music those days, or now, is like you would download a
now,
song
yeah."
and you go buy it. You know, they're like, "Fuck you,
But
you're not going to buy it." But now, of
but
course,
dude, there's
that's just
there's a
what
lot of I bet you there's a lot of musicians and like artists out there that probably publicly were like, "Oh, it was wrong for Metallica to sue Napster, da da da," but are probably
well, it
going,
was.
"Fuck, I wish they would have won because we're
They did win.
screwed."
They did win.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not wanting anybody to download. We're getting way off topic here. Like this is a whole
I
nother
know.
show, but
We're,
like that was just in a way they were right, but in a way they were wrong. I mean, it's like abortion, like with this stuff with music. It's like, how far does it go? It was the same argument back in the days of cassette tape in the 70s and 80s. It's like, oh, you tape a whole album, then you've got it. Like, well, no, like most people still want to own it. They're just gonna go buy it.
yeah,
And
when
when the
does
CDs came out, you wanted the CD because you could listen to it anywhere. So that was cool. You know, now it's
when do you
like,
own the album, at the point of conception, or like, hey, you
do
got me
what?
thinking about abortion. I don't.
If only Democrats and Republicans cared about metal the way they did about that. Like, no, there's not going to be any downloading. We have to stop Spotify.
You know, if only Republicans and Democrats would just
We have to stop it by Spotify.
tie a garbage bag full of helium around their heads, just you know, I hear it's a peaceful way to go.
They tried to stop metal though back in the day. The PMRC, they failed miserably, and it actually was a shot in the arm to music. So
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, I was never one of those people that's like, I I started to look for the warning labels. I'm like, I didn't really give a shit, but
well, no, because we were into it back then, and we already knew what was toxic and brutal out there. We didn't need some. We weren't like just buying whatever off the shelves of Musicland like most people were. That's the thing, is a lot
it's
of
really
Americans
weird
don't
because
like that.
I think the only band that I was into that was on at the time that the PMRC was doing all that was probably, I think Twisted Sister was on there, and I did like Twisted Sister. There's someone I haven't listened to in a long time.
Twisted Sister was good, and
Uh,
they too.
Wasp.
That's another band. And Wasp, Twisted Sister, and Wasp, and Queensryche all had this glammy look. But then when the glam thing hit, like the turbo glam style, they
Uh,
did that too,
oh
albeit in
yeah,
their own style. And all
yeah.
heavy metal bands did that. That's what pushed me to go away from them. And that's when I discovered Metallica. And that's why Metallica was in the right place at the right time, because
Oh
they
yeah.
had their jeans and t-shirts, fuck you attitude with ripped up sleeves and shit, and just like playing this kick-ass dirty metal, and everybody
Uh,
freaked out.
yeah. James Hetfield, yeah, like had acne and everything. It was kind of, yeah. You're like, it was just real.
That's what I would want to hear, is Hypocrisy do a cover of Fight Fire with Fire.
Oh, that'd be cool.
No one's ever pulled that song off. I think Hypocrisy could fucking do it. It would be so good. Peter, are you listening? Of course he is.
Peter's Swedish name. How do you pronounce his name? Telgargen? Gergen?
I think tagged Grim, but I don't know. Who knows?
Taggergen?
That'll be like another whole show topic. We'll have to have him on one time, and we'll just enunciate his name the whole show.
Yeah, just
So speaking of Hypocrisy, like the Pain Project, he has a band called Pain.
okay.
That's
That's in my Dropbox.
that is I sent you the second album, Rebirth.
Okay.
That is one of those records where it's just like the perfect album from start to finish. Totally its own genre. Like he's going for a Rammstein thing, but what he does is a fucking really good metal album with industrial overtones and even slightly goth overtones, but it's heavy.
Okay.
It's fast, it's heavy, but it's really unique and fresh. It's really fresh sounding. It's got a newer sound, like it's like electronic kind of thing to it. The guitar is really like buzzy and sharp, and such a good record. And the vocal styles are different. The lyrical approach is all like, different stuff. The first Pain record was kind of like that, but it was him like still doing like the dark, edgy stuff, like the metal. And it's good. It has that vibe. But the second one, the one I sent you, is so good. And then their third record starts to go a little more poppy, and he even does a cover of Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles, but it's fast and
Oh yeah.
thrash.
Huh. Okay, I'll listen to Pain.
Pain is good, and you'll like the Abyss, their black metal band too. Like I said, a very melodic black metal band, one of the best out there, but they don't get any credit for it because it's a death metal band, essentially doing black metal. But
I'll
it is.
try. I'll try to. I'll give black metal a shot. I'll see if I can somehow.
There's a lot of good black metal out there. I'm pretty sure that you would like all the
Weirdly,
stuff I hate.
it's funny because I think one of the reasons that, like I find black metal almost a little too melodic all the time. Like they seem to like musically, they seem to really kind of follow like kind of classical sounding. And I think the reason I like death metal is because it's sort of this more uh, angular sounding, compositions. It's jarring,
Jarring.
if it's almost like, yeah, where with like black metal, I can almost hear, I can really hear the classical like Western musical. And when I say Western, I mean like country Western, but like, you know, modern, classical composer type things, the
Well,
movements.
that is
Whereas
selling
death
black.
metal tends to like kind of, do those like sort of atonal kind of things.
Well, black metal, everybody thinks there's one type of black metal that don't know it, but there is not. It's much like death metal. There's the raw stuff, there's the fast stuff, there's slow, there's atmospheric, there's technical. And I'd say Hypocrisy's project, The Abyss, as black metal falls under probably a little bit technical, a little bit melodic, not too atmospheric, but overall it is what it should be. It's like a good, just like a very perfect slice of that type of music. And
Well,
it's
what would you call, okay, because every time we talk about black metal, I always tell you the band that I like, for one, like the only one that like seemed to have really captured like my interest, which was Deathspell Omega. Like, how would you, or I don't know if you're that familiar with them, but how would you describe them if you are familiar with them?
I'm not super in, I don't know their music very well, but what I've heard of it, it almost sounds like sort of death metal-y sometimes.
Maybe avant-garde black metal? I don't know.
There are bands like that are avant-garde, if you will, and that's kind of where Hypocrisy falls in the sphere of death metal, I guess is the best way to describe them, is they're so multifaceted. There are bands like Deathspell Omega, Blut Aus Nord is another band I think you would really like, Catatonia with a K.
Yeah.
And then there's Arcturus, who are basically like Ulver and Mayhem members. Arcturus is really proggy. You would love that band. It's like dark prog.
Okay.
Ulver is another band. Like there's a lot of black metal stuff out there that would appeal to somebody like you who is into prog and rock-based stuff. So I'll have to send you all that kind of stuff too. That's kind of where, if you know all this music, you can see all these different things that are just like stewing in this pot with bands like Hypocrisy and
Oh yeah.
Borgier, all these bands, because it's out there. And then everybody only knows Dark Throne, Mayhem, Burzum. And Dark Throne are one of the sloppiest bands there in some ways.
Oh,
They
okay, so who's the main guy in Dark Throne? Because
probably Fenriz, the drummer. I mean, there's only two guys, but he's
Fenriz.
a popular guy.
Yeah, like
He's like a black metal like figurehead. He's an icon.
yeah, and he's funny as hell. Like,
He's funny. That's
like,
why he's funny, and it's not a common thing with black metal. But he's a funny guy, and he's like a cornerstone.
but you know who else is a funny guy? Like is
well, he is. He's kind of a joke.
From Immortal.
Oh, huh?
Abath is also a funny guy.
Yeah, he's like Kronos of Venom. He's like one of those guys that's always just like making ad libs and jokes and quips all the time.
Yeah, I kind of like that, because all of a sudden it's like, okay, because at the end of the day, man, like It's just music.
But who was the one you said before? Who were we just talking about? Like,
That spell?
no, like just now before you said ABBA, like the other
Oh,
guy.
Fenris.
Oh, Fenriz, that's right. Well, the thing with Fenriz is when black metal was coming out, and they were so serious, and you couldn't even smile or laugh in their presence.
Yeah.
I got it because he said if you look at the first Dark Throne album, his name on the record says Hank Amarillo. And you're like, what? Hank Amarillo? And all the other guys are like Olvar Einstor and all these names. And Hank Amarillo? What the fuck is that? Amarillo is Spanish for yellow. And
Yeah.
Hank?
Yeah.
So it turns out that Fenriz was a guy who wore cowboy boots all the time in the Norwegian black metal scene because he had this obsession with Guns N' Roses and just Americans in
Yeah.
general, I guess.
He loves glam.
And when I met some other bands from Sweden and Norway who were here, when I had them at the radio station interviewing them, I won't say who they would always tell us, oh yeah, when the Dark Throne record came out, I remember he walked in like Fenriz and he had cowboy boots on, a Guns N' Roses shirt, and a cowboy hat. He loves country and fucking rock and roll and glam. And I'm like, really? And we
Oh,
were
dude, that's
all at
funny.
this time, that's when the murders were going on. We were like, holy shit, what about all the murders and shit? And he's like, oh yeah, well, they didn't take part in that, but they were there. But
Yeah.
that's what he's really about. And like then you figured out like what a joker that guy really was. It was
Well,
like
and in a way, though, I think he's almost like more pure than those other
well,
guys,
he
because
was
he
real.
just,
He was real about it because Euronymous and all those guys, they were posing in their own way because they were so serious and stoic. And like Emperor, when they went to England to play, they were like just like that the whole time. They wouldn't laugh, they wouldn't smile, they wouldn't do anything. They would just like stare and like be dour.
there's a little bit of that sort of like thing going on with like thrash metal. Like, and finally they're starting to admit it. Like, I can't think of the guy's name from Exodus, the guitar player for Exodus,
Gary Holt.
Gary Hall. Yeah, it was like an interview. He's like, yeah, back then we were like kill all the glam posers.
Oh
He's
yeah,
like,
that was
but but
the
but we
thrash
were
thing.
secretly like trying to learn like Warren DeMartini licks and worshiping George Lynch, kind of behind the
Well, we
scenes.
like that those bands that we listened to back then. That was the thing. It's just we hated the guys who were our peers that were our age at that time that were trying to play glam. 'Cause it was just ridiculous. Like you remember here in Salt Lake, we had a glam bar called Rafters. It was always full of hairballs and like poofy hairspray guys and like total rocker slut girls and just
Oh, dude, love that.
I'd give anything to have that back now compared to what we have. Like
Oh,
fucking
hell yeah, dude.
hip hop just will not fucking die. I'm like, God damn, Arsenio's been canceled since the 90s. Why is this shit still a thing?
Right? No, dude. Give me fishnets and hairspray. Uh,
I kind of miss that compared to what we got now, man.
oh,
It's
dude,
just,
totally, dude. Oh yeah.
but anyway, and it's funny too because Carcass played at Rafters.
I know, dude. I was just a little too young for the whole Rafters scene.
Well, Carcass,
Kind of,
here's the funny story too, is when Carcass came and played and did the Heartwork tour. I told you this story last time that we took him down the radio station and I pissed off Jeff Walker, but the next time they came back on the same tour, the Heartwork tour, it was funny because Jeff Walker, I can't remember, he said something kind of unsavory to the audience and like insulted Utah, probably because of me and what I said to him last time they were here. And they were playing at Rafters though, and I'm like, there was probably nobody there, and if whoever was there was probably like, "Where's the GNR, bro?" And so I don't know how that went. I wasn't there, but then I also heard, do you know the band Macabre?
oh yeah.
Now there's a band that's really good technically that gets way underrated, but they came and they played at Rafters, and they sing about serial killers, and so of course they were asked to stop playing by the owner of Rafters or whoever was there. They got kicked off. And there was a local band here called Wicked Innocence who took Macabre to their practice
Oh yeah.
joint, which was at, I think, the old Ranch building.
Yeah.
And they finished their show there. And we all pitched in a bunch of money to Macabre to get them on the road and bought some shirts and shit. And it was a really cool underground experience because they got kicked out of a glam club. We said, hey, here's a cool thrash band. Come play with these guys and finish your show there. And we all gave them some money and they went on their way. It was like we hung out, drank some beers, and that was it. Yeah, that's metal. That's fucking cool. You'll never see somebody doing that like in a rap show.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Not at all.
But that was just a funny aside with like the glam and the rafters. But anyway, you were going off about where did we go for that? We were talking
I
hypocrisy and their
I don't remember now. I think I think we should pick it up though. I mean, do you want to talk about pain on next Tuesday?
I think what you can do is if you listen to those records I sent you, and I'll send you the
Uh,
Total War black metal one. That one you don't have to listen to all the way through. It's kind of the same shit all the way through. Peter's the drummer on that. It's like fucking fast.
okay.
Um, there's that. There's another band he was in called Lockup, where it's guys from Napalm Death, where they're playing just kind of fast grindcore shit. He does vocals on one album.
I've heard some lockup before.
And he was also in a band called Bloodbath that you would probably like. It was just straight up Swedish death metal, but it's with Dan Swano, the guy who does Edge of Sanity, who are lauded as
Oh
one
yeah.
of the best Swedish death metal bands.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Edge of Sanity is pretty good. There's another band that Dan Swano was in, that melodic,
Edge
almost
of
like.
Sanity.
Well, no, there's another one. Maybe it's like, was it Dark Tranquility?
He
I
okay.
don't remember.
Swano is like also like a Peter Tagerton kind of guy. He has his own studio as well. I forget the name of it, but
Yeah, he's everywhere.
I think it's like Unisound or something more generic like that. Not Unisound, that's the Greek record label, but it was something like that. But he also produces a lot more of the melodic bands over there too. He was
Uh-huh.
in Edge of Sanity. He was the singer, and I didn't really like them too much. He also had a band called Infest Dead. It was like a deicide kind of. Was that a cat?
Yeah,
Yeah.
babysitting all these animals.
God damn. Do you
Two
like
cats,
gorillas
two dogs.
over there too, or like all these animals while you're recording?
Yeah, well, we're all just chilling out. I've been, dude, the whole time I've just been pushing this dog away. So,
Well, all those Swedish bands are kind of like interlaced somehow because I have on my label, I put out a single by a band called Wombbath, who were an old Swedish grind death band, and they had members that were in Sabaton. Remember, I know everybody likes
oh
that.
yeah, Sabaton.
So everybody likes that band. I'm not a fan of that band, but some of their members were in that band, and then some of the other members in that band were in another release I put out called Skin Eater, which is also Wombbath guys and the Sabaton guys. And it's pretty straight up technical death metal. You might like that. I don't know if you've heard that one on my label, but Skin Eater, like all those Swedish bands, they all have talent and they all are like multifaceted in like how they approach it. It's like it changes a lot.
Hmm.
So that's why I think Hypocrisy was just so good because they had those first two albums that were just standard basic Swedish death and they weren't bad. And they like radically changed after that and kind of lost me a little bit. And I still can't get into that album, The Fourth Dimension. It's really hard to get into all the way through. But Abducted is just so good. Always going to be one of the top 5 death metal albums of all time.
I'll check out Abducted. I'll listen to that one next.
You got to go all the way through though, because it's so good. It varies all the way through, but the last 3 songs are like, wow, you're going to be like, holy shit, what is this? So fuck you.
Fuck you too.
Oh, get
All right.
this. Did I tell you this? Check this out. You know how I got all my bands on the label up on Spotify?
Oh, you did?
Well, yeah, I used Plastic Head, the distributor from the UK.
Huh?
My goal was to get hard copy CDs over there to sell. But they're like, well, no, first we go digital. And it looks like that's all they're going to do because I think everybody is hating that we're selling CDs right now. So I got all my bands up on Spotify. I know I get hits all the time. I know we've talked about this. So I know everybody likes my bands because I get all these hits every day because I get the reports. But I have this band called Two Faced Sinner from Peru that's on the label. I did one record with them. And
Uh-huh.
now they're writing me saying that they're signing this agreement to be with ASCAP, ASCAP, you know that, the music
Yeah,
publishing.
yeah. ASCAP BMI kind of thing.
Yeah, BMI. And it's funny because I'm like, I don't know how to take this because usually I should be for this as a label owner, but
Uh,
right now, if they go through with this, the guy is writing me saying, "Hey, dude, look, you got to take this shit down from Spotify because if you don't, you're gonna get sued." I'm like, "Are you threatening me?" And he's like, "No, no, no." I'm just telling you, dude, we're signing with ASCAP, and if you have anything up, even on your Bandcamp, and if they didn't sanction it, you're going to be in trouble. So you better take it down. So I'm like,
Weird.
I released that album for you. How come I have to take it down? I'm not allowed to make money off of it? And he's like, yeah, dude, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. I told my Peruvian labels too for the first 2 records. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. I mean, I'm not selling that many of them, but that's fucked up. Don't
Oh,
you?
wow, I didn't know that. I thought if you were on
Or
ASCAP,
is
you could still be on Spotify.
Well, I don't know. It's like, should
I
I
don't
be
know how
pissed
that.
about that? Because it's musicians' rights and they're getting money, but at the same time, I'm the label and I'm getting 86. Like, what the fuck's that? I put that fucking record out and I put it up on Spotify and I'm getting told,
Well,
fuck.
that's,
How does
huh,
that work out?
dude, I have no idea. Like, maybe that'd be something to talk about. Is like,
That is
I don't
another.
know, man. How do we make music profitable again for everybody? Involved. You know, from the artist to the actual labels.
It's going to happen anymore. But I just thought that was a funny aside because I'm bitching about, Spotify all the time. And then I'm getting to take a band off of Spotify. But at the same time, I'm not allowed to leave it up for my own purposes. And I'm the one who paid to fucking release that record. So.
That's crazy.
I'm being told to go eat shit and die basically by ASCAP, who I think they should be. Well, I don't know. That's probably kind of corporate though. Is like you got to pay this label like every time. So are the band really getting money? How does that work?
I so what I think it is, it's just licensing. So like
Yeah.
ASCAP like facilitates like licensing for the songs, for whoever wants to use it. But I don't know how it works, dude. I'm kind of stupid when it comes to publishing.
Well, I know that when we had at the barbecue at the restaurant, they ASCAP BMI would always give us shit because we had to pay them a certain tithing or something in order to play
Yeah.
like, anything. If even we had like music we took from our own CDs and put it on there, in order to play it in a public place, we had to pay them.
Right. Okay, yeah. So and I think that's what it is. I think for you to leave, if you wanted to leave their stuff up, you'd have to pay ASCAP BMI to keep it on Spotify. You'd have to pay
Well,
some kind of,
that's not worth
and
it
it,
because
it is probably a recurring kind of thing, like a monthly or yearly kind of fee to have rights to put. Dude, I don't know. I have a feeling I don't know what I should
that's
stop
what I
while I'm
mean. Should
ahead
I be
because I don't know
pissed
what I'm
about that
saying.
or should I feel like that's a victory for musicians? But it's not a victory for the label. I'm like, well,
Well,
fuck
and I don't think it's a
about that.
victory for like they're not. I don't think they're getting shit from ASCAP BMI. Someone's probably getting some money. Like you said, they have like another label.
Their old labels, like from Peru when they first started, then I found them on Facebook and I was like, holy
So
shit.
so their old labels probably getting any kind of kickbacks for that
No, their old label
move.
in Peru, all they did was put out their CD too, so they also are getting the shaft. So and like they're doing
Uh,
this ASCAP thing. But that's what makes me kind of pissed off because I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, music's not even like it used to be. Like, ASCAP shouldn't even be a thing because if it is, why is Spotify allowed to go on then? Like, who's stopping them? And
yeah.
actually, speaking of which, I posted something on Facebook. It's Ozzy Osbourne talking shit on Spotify. So that's actually kind of a funny read. You should check that out. But anyway, that's another topic for another time.
Yeah, man.
Did you not listen to any of the other stuff I sent you and Dropbox?
I okay,
Hypocrisy?
so I listened to Abduction.
Abducted.
No, Abduction.
Abducted.
Yeah, abducted.
Past
Abducted.
tense. God damn it,
And
I am metal. Don't argue with me.
no, I you know what? I could see why I could see why that one actually drew you in.
Yeah,
Um,
how's that?
and I don't mean this as any kind of like bad or like he's ripping anybody off, but like that album sounds the most like vocally, and even some of the guitar riffs sound very Carcass like.
You know, it's funny that you say that because I never would have placed that, but now that you actually said it, my initial response, because it was you saying it, would be to argue, but
Yes.
you actually might have a point there.
And it is interesting. Like it's a curious album because like so the album is just pretty blasting all the way, and then the last two songs, right?
That's my favorite. I'd love to hear an album just like that from them.
Yeah, but it was an interesting choice for the last two songs. These are very Pink Floydian kind of melancholy sort of songs, and to me, like
Perfect word.
when a band does that, you know, it almost is either a signaling like a swan song or a transition in their sound. But their sound didn't drastically change too much after that. But I was just gonna say I don't think there's any other albums that really had those, you know, a real kind of ballady, mournful sort of, you know what I mean? Atmospheric sort of song, like Pink Floydish.
Yeah, it's a shame he didn't do more because it was so good. I would have loved the full album of that or
Yeah.
something.
But I thought that was a very actually that was really interesting. And especially just like the last two songs, like back to back. Like that was kind of an odd, really odd kind of choice in the sequence and just and the sound as well. So if you ever talk to Peter, just ask him, What's up with that? What did you mean by doing that?" You know, because I think that was very intentional. That's kind of mysterious to me. I think it
Well,
makes
look
it
at the
kind of
lyrics.
intriguing.
Look at the lyrics and the song titles: "Drained" and "Slipping Away." After all that stuff he's been through on that record with all the
Hmm.
UFOs and aliens and being abducted and the government and lies,
Hmm.
maybe that's what it is. He's just like
It's
at the
like
end of
I'm
his rope,
tired.
ready to die. That's
Yeah,
kind of
and
what I picked.
that's why I wouldn't be surprised like if you actually talked to him. I wouldn't be surprised if he was like maybe thinking of quitting at that point.
Maybe you're right, because the next album was supposed to be the last one, the final chapter.
Uh-huh.
So,
But anyways, yeah,
so did you
I
listen to
enjoyed it.
any? What was your overall take on Abducted then?
Overall, um I still don't like it as much as like uh Cash 22, just
Oh,
because once again like I
see,
like being
you like everything I hate, and you hate everything I like. You say you don't, but you do. It's true.
I don't
Catch
know how many I love crunchy, chunky,
the
chuggy
fucking
riffs.
Slipknot record. Come on.
Yeah, well, I guess
You're the guy who
yeah,
gets a Death
guess I'm a
Metal band and
Slipknot
goes
fan
and
now.
finds their one record where they sound like fucking like Bay City Roller. Like, oh yeah, I love like this influence of like roller skating pop music here. And like they really hit it here. That's
No.
yeah.
Yeah, we're
So
gonna
you
get
didn't
to the
care
bottom
for
of this.
Abducted as much.
No, I liked it. No, I liked it a lot actually. But I'd say like if I was for something that I'd give more repeat listens to, just like musically, you know, it's like okay, Abducted is something that you listen to like probably front to back if you're gonna throw it on. Um,
Pretty much, yeah.
it takes more investment emotionally and then time wise, whereas something that I'm just gonna like put it on shuffle and just rock out Cash 22, and I that tends to be the mode I'm in most of the time is like, or I'm walking or I'm working or something like that. Just give me some chunky energy. But if I'm, you know, if it's nighttime and then, you know, I'm like walking along the river or something like that, something like Abducted would be a good one because you have the atmospheric, you have that flow, you have that sort of kind of pleasant, dark, melancholy, surreal
And then
overtones,
also
the whole thing.
that that record is also the first one where he debuted the screechy kind of black metal vocal style that almost
There
became
was a scream. There was a scream on that that almost reminded me of like I guess yeah, I guess it's more black metal, but I was actually gonna say it sounded more like something from Exciter or Anacrusis. Like it was kind of a metally shriek, but I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. It's that real long, he draws it out. It's pretty cool.
well, there's a lot on there, and almost to a point I was like, well, where are the death metal vocals? They're just gone. It's all this black metal stuff now. But it was
Yeah.
cool. There was a varied style of vocals. I mean, there were the clean ones
But
at
there,
the end. There was the weird like pitch shifter, like warbly stuff he had on that one song, When the Candle
yeah,
Fades. That was cool. Yeah, I mean, it's overall was that debut of the black metal-y kind of vocals, and those became really prevalent. Then the next album, Final Chapter, the growls came back with the other ones too, and they're just all over the place. And see maybe that's where I'm going with all these other bands that kind of disappoint me is like they have all this other stuff. It's like a big smorgasbord,
uh,
all this stuff going on, and then I love the topic, aliens and such, versus the tired
yeah,
satanic stuff. But
yeah, I do like that kind of shift. But I see like some of the topics from newer kind of extreme metal bands are starting to shift back into like kind of more cosmic type lyrics, and I dig that. Think bands like Fallujah and My Mind Is Toast now.
or
Origin is kind of like that. Yeah, like I like
Death did that for a minute, didn't they? Did
uh
cosmic and like human inner cosmic.
yeah,
All
and I
that.
like that. I like the philosophical or even like exploring science fiction side of it over like death and Satan.